ADC is the most frustrating role in League of Legends. I'm going to give you 5 points that will win you more games on ADC. And hopefully, by the end of this video, you'll have a better perspective as to how high elo AD carries can consistently climb in a position that feels like Riot has a dedicated team of people getting paid to shaft it. I recently decided to try and get Master on 3 different roles: support, jungle, and ADC. And since I already hit Challenger on support, I've moved to AD carry. This video is about the things I'm learning as I climb. Stick around to the end of the video for a bonus point that every AD carry should know, but I rarely see used. The first point that pretty much every AD carry has heard before but needs to be said is farm. Farm is literally 90% of what you should focus on first. If you focus on other things but you can't farm consistently, then you're gonna get hard stuck. I hate to be that guy.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Getting a good CS per minute on ADC should be your top priority. There are some videos on wave management out there. I've done a couple that should help you here, but if you're struggling, basically ask yourself, are you catching every minion wave that you can, or are you getting sucked into bad fights? Now, the next point is games go on for way longer than they should the lower elo you go. This means there are throws. There are people doing random things that they shouldn't. Basically, the better team fighting ADC in general can win. I hard carried my way to Plat 1 simply by having better positioning, even though I'm a handless support jungle main. Don't put yourself in positions which you can't outplay in the first place. This takes a little bit of practice, but frankly, if you died and you feel like there was no way you should have lived, then the solution is not to think that you couldn't have done anything, but rather don't get in that position in the first place. The next point I have is really important to understand. You will always have games that you almost never can win. AFKs, trolls, people who just throw. It happens. Additionally, there are some games which are just very difficult when you take a champion and it's just not the best champ. For example, you have to blind pick an immobile AD carry and the enemy has Diana Yasuo. If the Diana Yasuo start getting fed, chances are you're going to have a bit of a rough game. My point is, that's just part of League of Legends. When you hit the play button, that does not necessarily mean you're going to win. You have to be ready to go into a game and for it to turn out to be a loss. The only other piece of advice with this point is losses aren't actually that bad. You can learn a lot from them, especially on ADC. If you lost a fight because you didn't have enough farm, maybe take a look at why you had such low farm. But just keep that in mind. Now, another point I've been thinking about a lot when I'm playing AD carry is my champion choice. For AD carry specifically, I really don't feel like it has that big a difference. It does impact your laning phase, and the higher elo you go, the more it does matter, but it only really impacts your carrying ability slightly. The main thing about your champion choice is knowing your own limits. If you don't know the limits of your champion, or you haven't played your champion enough to really punish the enemy team in lane, well, frankly, that is a bigger issue. It's not really the champion itself. It's more about how much you know about the champion. So you have to keep that in mind. I would really recommend only really playing 2 to 3 champs, but that's a given. And I just want to give one quick example on this, which is when I play Tristana or Jhin, I really know when I can kill the enemy AD carry when I need to flash in. If I'm playing a champion I've never played like Aphelios, I'm going to be way more hesitant and I'm going to let a lot of opportunities to snowball the game slide simply because I'm not confident in my ability to go in and outplay. The next point I have for you guys is a difficult one to explain. The way I wrote this down was the threat of you hitting someone is pretty much mandatory to constantly keep in your mind as an AD carry. Essentially, you have an incredible level of zoning power if you're an AD carry with decent items in the game. This actually ties into the bonus point, which I'm about to get into, so stick around to find out. Basically, the higher elo you go, the more you need to understand how you as an AD carry can sort of zone the enemy team off of objectives. Now, this sounds simple when I say it that way, but I'm not just talking about your positional zoning. I'm talking about basically your zone outside your auto attack range. When people see a fed AD carry in higher and higher elos, they start to recognize that, hey, if I'd use this dash, they will flash on me, or they will gale force on me, or they will be able to kill me. This is a really important thing to understand, because actually, if you understand this as an AD carry, you can single-handedly zone an enemy team off of a dragon or a baron, or you can call the enemy's bluff when they're walking too far up and they shouldn't be. And that is actually one of the biggest mistakes. A lot of people give the enemy so much space as an AD carry just because they have this feeling that they're going to get one shot. They might not actually be able to get one shot, but they just feel like they're squishy. Now, what you need to understand is you're only squishy if they can reach you. If you have a bunch of different tools at your disposal, you need to use them. And that's what this next point is about. So this next point is a little hard to explain. The way I wrote it down is essentially basically need to be really aware of the threat you pose and how the enemy are feeling about looking at you as an AD carry from their team. Now, if that didn't make sense, let me try and explain it this way. When you're a really fed Jinx, you need to understand that if the enemy does a certain action, maybe they do a certain cooldown in a fight or whatever, you have a window to play incredibly aggro. Now, this is what the best AD carries on the server do. So if you watch them, you'll immediately notice that they are split-second decision-making about these kind of points. They will notice one cooldown in a fight. For example, the enemy Diana wastes her E without resetting it with her little moon passive Q. So Diana no longer has her dash. And they will immediately change their playstyle and start playing hyper aggro. This is what I mean by the threat you pose, but actually the threat you pose just walking around with your teammates nearby. When it's hard to reach an AD carry just because they have a beefy support or a frontline tank near them stopping you from getting to them, then that AD carry immediately has a much bigger zone of control. So what you really need to understand is, where is your zone of control? And if I just walk up, can I actually take this objective for free without even taking a fight? I'll be honest, once I'm fed on my Smurf, I don't even need to team fight anymore. I just walk around killing and one-shotting towers. Most of the time, the enemy just doesn't know what to do. And that's the payoff of the point number 1, which I gave you, which is if you have the farm, you have the items. And if you have the items, the enemy team can't do anything. So this is a bonus point, and I only see this starting around master tier. So this is really important if you want to start to reach higher and higher ranks, or if you just want to really dominate in lower elos. But this is that AD carries can actually engage. That's right, I mean that. The way you engage as an AD carry is not by flashing in, but by simply putting yourself in a position to bait a bunch of important cooldowns. I can't count the amount of good AD carries I've played against on my main in high elo who have baited me in when they have a certain cooldown and they know precisely the amount of damage they can take before gale forcing out or flashing out, or maybe they'll just save their heal. But the point is, if you watch a really good AD carry play, it's amazing the lengths they'll go to start fights when they know they are strong. Just one example would be, I've just hit my 3-item spike on, say, Jinx, and I have Gale Force, Rapid Fire Cannon, and Infinity Edge. So I am very strong, but my team seems to just not want to start a team fight. Well, what I could do if I'm strong enough and understand my limits well enough is play really aggro in mid lane, force the enemy team to maybe burn an ultimate. Maybe they use Kled ult on me, or Leona tries to ult me, or flash on me, and I could Gale Force away from it, or get hit by the initial Leona E and then flash away as she tries to ult me if I can dodge her Q. Well, that might just start a fight that is good enough to snowball out of control, and that is what a lot of really good AD carries can do consistently. So if you're thinking, I don't have control over the game, well, maybe it's because you're approaching engaging as an AD carry in completely the wrong way. You need to think about it more as, what cooldowns can I get out of the enemy instead of how can I start a fight? If you want to play like the AD carry pros, you really should be clicking on this video. Why don't you find out what DPI they're using? I wonder what DPI rookie's using. Click on it. Click on it right now. Go for it.